Welcome to Can You Trust Your Pet? Protect your pet with a pet trust. My name is Peggy Hoyt, and the dog you see with me in the picture is my newest dog. His name is Bingo, and he is an Aussie Corgi mix. And just recently got some new photos, so I thought I would share a picture of Bingo with you. But we're going to talk about pet trust today and how we can protect our pets. So let's talk a little bit about pet ownership in America. So one of the interesting things is that 71.1 million households own at least one pet, and that's 63% of all the households in the United States. Lots and lots of dogs, almost 75 million dogs, 88 million cats, about 16 million birds. This is a number that really always makes me smile, but 24 million small animals, that would be things like bunnies and hamsters and gerbils, 13.4 million reptiles, can't say I know who those people are, and then 13.8 million horses. And of course, I am one of the horse lovers, so I'm taking up part of that space. Why should we protect our pet? Well, it's probably pretty obvious, but the Humane Society of the United States, they report that each year we euthanize 2.7 million healthy, adoptable cats and dogs in our US shelters. And that equates to about one pet every 11 seconds. And I just hate to hear that number, because what it means is that we're actually euthanizing somewhere between 3 to 4 million, because there's a large number that fall into that category of unadoptable. And that's a discussion for another day, but suffice it to say that we're still euthanizing way too many loved pets in this country. Sometimes people say, well, you know, I can't get a pet at the shelter because I want to have a purebred. And the statistics show us that 25% of the pets that are in shelters are actually purebred pets. So I have adopted, at my father's suggestion, a quote, "Until there are none, please adopt one." And I have lived my life by that motto. I currently have 3 horses that were all adopted, 6 dogs that were all adopted, and 2 cats that were both adopted. So what can we do right now to create a written action plan to protect our pets? First and foremost, you can identify at least 2 people, we'll call them pet caregivers, to be responsible for your pets, both in the short term and the long term. So you might choose one person and an alternate for short-term care, and then you might choose another person and an alternate for long-term care. So sometimes people have pet sitters that would be great for short-term care, but maybe not fit the long-term care solution. So I want you to be thinking about who you would choose as your pet caregivers. The second thing I want to suggest is that you assemble a notebook that holds important information and documents about your pets. I've been carting my notebook around with me today because I was at the vet this morning and I want to make sure that everything stays up to date. But I have a section for each one of my pets in that notebook that contains a pet profile for each of my pets and their complete medical history. I'm going to talk more about the pet profile in a minute. I also suggest that you carry an emergency pet alert card in your wallet. You can buy these or you can make them, but just something that you have in your wallet that says, my pets are home alone, in case you were to get into an accident or end up in the hospital and somebody's going through your wallet. You want to make sure that they find that card, and on it, you want to put the name and contact information for your short-term pet caregivers. I carry mine right in my wallet behind my health insurance card. Another place you could put it would be right behind your driver's license, as an idea. I also like the idea of posting an in case of emergency decal or sticker on your doors at your house, on any windows. And I had somebody suggest, and I thought this was a great idea, on your car dash. So another, in case of emergency, my pets are home alone, please contact. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say, and include specific pet provisions in your estate plan, ideally both in your powers of attorney and in a living trust. We're going to talk more about that coming up. So I mentioned the pet profile. I call it a forever loved pet profile. This is a complete history of your pet. It says everything that anybody would need to know: the name, the age, the breed, the gender, any identifying marks. It's a great idea to include a picture. What are your pet's eating habits? What kind of food requirements do they have? Do they have any special medical conditions? What kind of sensitivities or allergies might they have? Are they taking any medications, and keeping up a accurate list of that? Information regarding who is your veterinarian, and making sure that their shot records are there. And then I like to encourage you to include any special traits that only you might know about your pet. For example, Piper is sitting in the chair behind me right now, and it's not raining at the moment, but if we were to have a thunderstorm, he would start shaking like crazy. And he's going to be fine, but it's just, that's an important thing that somebody would want to know if they were taking over the day-to-day care for Piper. And then we want to give a copy of the pet profile to those people who might eventually care for our pets. So you're going to have it in your notebook, and then you might give a copy to your pet sitter or your nominated pet caregivers. But I really do want to talk about pet trust, because I think a pet trust is the best way to protect your pet. It is estimated that 500,000 loved pets are euthanized annually solely because their pet parent didn't have a plan for them. And there's really no excuse, because pet trusts are now valid in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. This has been going on for more than a decade now, where the states were adopting these provisions in the law to provide for pets. I will say that Minnesota was the very last state to adopt a pet trust statute. That happened back in 2016. And yet, pet trust planning is still so new that not all lawyers are familiar with it. Not even all estate planning lawyers are familiar with it. And I saw a need to really create a turnkey pet trust solution, something that would be appropriate for every pet owner. So what I ended up doing is creating an organization called Animal Care Trust USA. And I notice it's cut off our logo here, but our motto is keeping loved pets in loving homes. And Animal Care Trust USA is a 501c3 charity. It's a nonprofit, and our mission is to keep loved pets in loving homes. We have 3 different options for pet trust planning. The first is what I call the Act for Pets Community Pet Trust. And this is a trust that you don't have to draft yourself. It's a trust you actually join. So I've created the master trust agreement, and then the pet parent signs the joinder agreement joining the pet trust. And in the Act for Pets Community Pet Trust, Animal Care Trust USA would be responsible for rehoming your pet and making sure that there were benefits or assets available for the lifetime care of your pet. So the pet parent will leave the money to the pet trust, and then those funds will be used to help defray the expenses of taking care of that pet. So that's one option. A second option is the Forever Loved Pet Trust. This is one step up from the community pet trust, but this is a trust that you can personalize. So I've created the base trust, but then you can personalize it by choosing your own pet caregivers and your own pet trustees. If you choose Animal Care Trust as a pet trustee, you'll also choose us as your pet caregiver, and we will be responsible for rehoming your pets at the end of your lifetime or in the event of your disability. The third option is you can create and bring your own custom pet trust. And this would be a trust that your own attorney would create. You could work with us for the purpose of creating one, and then nominate Animal Care Trust USA to be the pet trustee, responsible for the day-to-day oversight of the pet trust, including all of the provisions of the pet trust, making sure that your pets are well cared for and that the money is properly managed and distributed. And if you want to get more information about these three different options, you can visit our website at actforpets.org. So I'm going to talk about what the planning options are just in a more general sense. So a lot of people say, well, why can't I just make an outright distribution of my pet to a named pet caregiver and just leave them some money to go along with the pet? Well, you definitely can do that, but that's one of the options that has the greatest risk. Because if you just simply leave your pet to a friend or a family member and you give them a gift of cash, they may or may not actually take care of your pet. And that's the thing that you won't be here to know. And there's nobody doing the oversight, checking up on whether or not your pet is being properly cared for. So some attorneys might recommend creating a pet trust inside of your last will and testament. We call this a testamentary pet trust. I don't recommend it, and I don't recommend it because of the delays that are related to probate, and that could put your pet at risk. And when we're designing a plan to benefit your pet, we want to make sure that we have the lowest risk to the pet possible and the greatest protection to make sure your pet's going to be cared for. The other thing I want to point out here is that you can't use a will to make an outright gift to your pet. So your pet cannot be a beneficiary of your last will. And any attempt to do so would be considered an invalid devise and would be void. So how do we get the greatest protection for our pets? We get the greatest protection by creating a pet trust. And there's two ways to do this. One is you can create what I call a standby pet trust as part of a revocable living trust. So as the pet parent, you have a revocable living trust for yourself to take care of you during your lifetime and in the event of your disability and ultimately at the time of your death. And then after your passing, then that trust would exist partially or wholly for the benefit of your pets. So if I were to pass away, my revocable living trust says, after my death, create a trust for the benefit of my pets and fund it with this much money. Here's my pet caregivers. Here's where I want my pets to live. Here's who I want to be the trustee, and provide them with lifetime care. Another option is that you could create what I call a standalone pet trust. So a standalone pet trust is a revocable living trust, but it's one created for the sole purpose of providing for your pets in the event of your disability or at the time of your death. So a pet trust is part of a revocable living trust I call a standby pet trust, And then if you create a pet trust that's solely for the purpose of protecting your pets, I call that a standalone pet trust. One of the things you have to think about when you're thinking about planning for your pets is, where do you want your pet to live? So I've come up with 3 options. I'm sure there's more than that, but I gave them little names. And the first one I call Forever Home. And for the Forever Home option, this is the pet parent that wants their pet or pets to stay in the pet parent's home. This is my preferred option for me and for my pets, because I have 3 horses and 6 dogs and 2 cats, and it would be much easier for somebody to move into my house than for my pets to move in with somebody else. So I call that Forever Home. My pet caregiver would live in my home with my pets till the last one of my pets passed away, and then the pet trust would be terminated. Another option is what I call Forever Family. And this is where your pet would be rehomed with a new loving family, someone who agrees to take care of your pet for the rest of its life. And then the last, or the third option here, is Forever Sanctuary. Forever Sanctuary is the idea that some pets might not be amenable to being rehomed with a family for any number of reasons, either their age or their health or their temperament or the type of pet that it is, horses, for example. And these animals might go to live in a pet community with other loved pets. So the choice is yours, but something to think about when you're thinking about the homing options for your pets. So as I mentioned, I think the standalone pet trust is your best option. This is a trust that's created during the lifetime of the pet parent. It takes effect immediately upon creation, so it's valid from the moment you create it. It contains provisions regarding the care for your loved pets in the event that you, as the pet parent, become incapacitated or pass away. I know that when we're thinking about planning, a lot of times we think about the fact that, well, someday I'll pass away. But what we don't take into consideration is the fact that you might not just pass away. You might also have a period of incapacity before you actually die. In your standalone pet trust, you're going to name both your short-term and your long-term pet caregivers. And these are the people that are going to be able to immediately take care of your pets, and then secondarily provide your pets with lifetime love and care. And no matter who you choose, you're going to want to choose at least one and possibly more. 2 would be ideal. 3 would be even better. Alternates, to make sure that we don't run out of people who might be willing and able to care for your pets. My recommendation is to choose a professional pet trustee for the management of the trust assets. And the trust assets, we're going to talk about those in a minute, but they could be anything from your house to cash, to being the beneficiary of a life insurance policy, to being the beneficiary of a retirement plan. Could include your personal property or vehicles that need to be sold. But what you put into the pet trust is ultimately up to you. But the pet trustee is the responsible party for managing the assets, making sure that they're invested properly, and that they're being distributed for the trust purpose, which is the lifetime love and care of your pet. So as I mentioned, the trust should be funded with a variety of assets, including cash, securities, bank accounts, retirement plans, and life insurance. Those are the best because of the fact that they're the most liquid. And if we need to create cash for care, then we would have that ability. But any kind of plan you do for your pet needs to be part of a broader, comprehensive estate plan that also includes durable power of attorney, and other healthcare directives. So a durable power of attorney would be for financial decision making. Your healthcare directives would be for healthcare decision making. And we want to make sure that whoever you name for financial decision making has the proper authority in that legal instrument to also make distributions for the benefit of your loved pets. So one of the questions that I get a lot is, how do we calculate the cost of care? And there's a lot of factors that go into calculating the cost of your pet's lifetime love and care. Obviously, the type of pet you have is going to make a huge difference. Is it a cat? Is it a horse? Is it a parrot? Is it a tortoise? So the type of pet you have and the age of your pet. So sometimes people think, well, if I'm planning for an old pet, I don't need as much money, but that's actually counterintuitive, because we might actually need more money because that pet might have a chronic or long-term illness that we're going to have to provide for. You're also going to want to think about what you spend on food and medicines, including monthly flea treatment or heartworm preventative. How much do you spend on toys and treats? What do you spend on veterinary care? Not only their annual care, but we do want to plan for chronic or catastrophic care. You want to include some provisions for boarding and grooming, because even your pet caregiver might need to go on vacation every now and then. And if you have the type of pet that requires periodic grooming, you're going to want to make sure that you budget for that as well. And then we want to plan for end-of-life care. What happens when our pet passes away? Are we going to have the cost of euthanasia? Are we going to have a cremation or a burial? And then what do you want for that final disposition? Do you want your pet's remains scattered? Do you want your pet buried? Do you have a special place for that, or would it be at a pet cemetery? There's lots of things to think about. Other things to think about from a final disposition standpoint are, do you want to capture some of your pet's DNA for any reason? I'm updating my book right now, and I put in a whole section on cloning pets. That's become a thing, actually. And it's not an inexpensive thing, but 60 Minutes did a piece on it not too long ago, and I happened to catch it, and it was very, very interesting. The other thing that you could think about, and not everybody's going to do this, but is the cryopreservation of your pet. So actually having your pet frozen at the time of death, with the expectation that we may have the science and the technology in the future to revive your pet. So those are just things to think about. Other things that you want to think about are calculating the caregiver compensation and their expenses. So if your caregiver is going to live in your home, maybe that's their compensation, because you're going to pay for the mortgage and the utilities and the upkeep and the maintenance, but maybe not. So something to think about. Do you want to provide any compensation for your caregiver? And if your pet is going to remain at home, you're also going to have all those additional expenses of the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, etc. And then if you have a trustee, which all trusts have a trust, some would be individuals, some might be professionals, but you should budget for trustees' fees, because nobody likes to work for free. So just making sure that you've thought of all of those different possibilities, and then you can check out our online calculator at our website at actforpets.org. See that cute little kitten in the picture? That's my little Forrest when he was a baby. So funding your pet trust, that's making sure that we have enough money, number one, but number two, that we identify those assets that we're going to use to fund the trust. And the way we fund a trust is either by retitling, assets or accounts into the name of the trust, or naming the trust as a pay on death beneficiary. So if we're planning for disability, so when the pet parent becomes disabled, we're going to make sure that we have assets that are available at disability as well as at death. So look to checking, savings, CDs, money markets, mutual funds, investment accounts that you might have, stocks or bonds that you might have. Some people might want to leave real property, either your home or other investment property that you might have. You might have personal property that you're going to leave to the trust that would later be sold to raise the funds to care for the pets. You might have life insurance or annuities. Both of those would have a beneficiary, and you could name the trust as the beneficiary. Or you can also identify your retirement plans as a source to fund your pet trust and name the trust as the beneficiary of your IRA or your 401k or your Roth IRA. So as you can see, there's lots of different ways to raise the resources for planning for your pets and making sure that they have enough money. So my message to you is to get a pet trust today. Here's our website, actforpets.org. You can call me at 407-977-1300. You can email me, and there's 2 different email addresses there. And we hope that you will take the time and the interest and the energy to plan for your pets. Thank you for your time and attention today, and happy tales.